Welcome to the second edition of Sowing Musical Seeds with the San Antonio Chamber Choir. We're pleased that you joined with us. We've looked at how pieces are stitched together. Now we're going to look at just actually one piece and see how a composer stitched that piece together. And we have with us today the composer of a beautiful setting of Motherless Child. All of you know this tune. And it's sort of built on a wonderful pentatonic scale. The composer has set it in an E-flat minor mode, and then we have an occasional, after some 6 or 7 measures, finally we have an added F. And later in the work, he, instead of just making it just a natural minor scale, he raises the 6th. And even on the last page of the work, really when it gets to be quite dramatic, almost operatic in its form, the soloist sings on top of this gorgeous setting of Motherless Child. I'm pleased to be with composer Adolphus Hailstork this afternoon, and we are discussing his fantastic setting of Motherless Child. And Adolphus, it's great to have you here with us for our second episode of Sowing Musical Seeds with the San Antonio Chamber Choir. And please give us a little bit of your musical background leading up to your fantastic composing career.
Well, I started out, singing-wise, I started out, well, 2 times, in the junior high school, but I also, when I was in, I think it was the 5th or 6th grade, the wife of the choir director of the Cathedral of All Saints in Albany, New York, came by. I don't think this could happen today. Came by my school that I was in, and since they were recruiting boys to restart an all-male chorus in the English tradition, and I wanted to do that, and I asked my mom if I could sign up, and she said yes. And of course, it was a paid gig. You know, I don't know, we paid something like $14 a month or something crazy. I don't know, you know, but it was great. And that's where I learned to read music, and that's where I started piano lessons, and that's where I started organ lessons. And I stayed in there until I graduated from high school, of course. And through the painful year of my voice change when I went from being a soprano to being a baritone. And meanwhile, I was singing in the public schools as a soloist in junior high school. And then in high school, I really got interested. We had a fantastic choir director. He modeled himself a la Toscanini. And the demands he made were fantastic. I mean, the school itself and the department had a very strong music department. And it was like what we would call a school of the arts, or magnet school for the arts today. We had a fine band, a wonderful orchestra. I played in the orchestra also, and a stupendous choir. Well, that always got top grades at all the evaluations, the high school choir evaluations. And his name was Frank B. Bailey. And whenever we had to, when we were having trouble with the passage, he'd divide us into each section, and we'd all have to go stand in the corner and conduct ourselves through it and sing it together. And then he'd call us back, and boom. The training under that guy was so strong. and our sense of discipline was so strong that that helped lead to my wanting to be a career musician. I did not want to be a career singer. I didn't think I was good enough for that, and I didn't think I had the people skills to be a choir director, actually, because that you have to be very skillful with human beings, and I was really a loner, but I took the composition because I could spend a lot of time alone at the piano, and I preferred to write at the piano, and rather than practice my scales and arpeggios, I preferred to make up stuff. And then I went on to college, still studying, wanting to be a composer, and I've always wanted to be a composer ever since I was a sophomore in high school, and that was back in the mid-50s. So I went to college in '59, and still studying comp. They had a fabulous choir at Howard University in Washington, D.C. when I joined, and that was a dream choir. I mean, when I first heard them, I could not believe what I was hearing, and I begged to get in it immediately. And in a week I learned Carmina Burana. No, I'm sorry. Chorus number 10 by Bjella.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were going to sing that with the National Symphony Orchestra for a visit by Shostakovich.
Ooh.
And that was one of the things they put on the program. And actually that turned out to be his most memorable experience, he said, when he got home, hearing that black choir at Howard University sing that chorus number 10 by Bjella. But anyway, so I stayed with composing. I always wrote choral music, and that's been it. I wound up, I finished at Howard in '63. I spent a summer in Fontainebleau studying with Boulanger, and then I went to the Manhattan School of Music in New York City, and they required that I get, my first degree at Howard had been in theory. They required that I get a bachelor's degree in composition. So I had to get another bachelor's and then a master's degree, also at the Manhattan School of Music. And then eventually I wound up at the Michigan State and got my doctorate under H.O. and Reed, and always writing choral music and always writing vocal music. And that's been my career. The career itself has been moving very nicely, and
well, you are renowned and
well, I don't know about that, but thank you. Thank you.
around the world, and
I was very I've had some nice performances and some nice commission opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Well, and getting now specifically to Motherless Child, this particular setting is I think the wailing that you have written into the parts, the imitation is really quite extraordinary. I've done a lot of different settings, many that are well known to our audience, but I find this one to be the most breathtaking. And the phonic language, the use of sort of the pentatonic nature of the tune, and then adding that raised sixth, making it really interesting, are just some phenomenal traits to this arrangement.
Well, yeah, I do have a sense of the drama. This is one of the most dramatic spirituals ever, and I don't know why I particularly picked it, but I'm trying to recall why I was set this. I was 20 years ago, the year 2000. No particular thing, but I wanted to set it because I've always loved it as a spiritual. And my own approach has been dramatic. And if you know other choral pieces of mine, there's a tinge of drama in almost everything I write.
Well, in
And
your operas too.
yeah, and I happen to love the human voice and writing for the human voice, and that was it. So that's what happened.
Your the baritone solo is demanding. It almost covers 2 octaves from a low E flat up to a high D flat above middle C. And did you have a
Ah,
particular voice in mind, or did you sing it yourself?
Oh yeah. There was a guy in my choir who, now this, we're talking about the Unitarian choir at Norfolk, Virginia, Unitarian Universalist, and I had a stupendous bass in that choir. And I'm sure I wrote this after he joined the choir.
Ah,
And Doug Chenault was his name, and I mean he could get down to a low C,
ah,
and he could get up to a high E, to an E flat. So I'm pretty sure I had his voice in mind when I wrote it. Now you know that there are 2 versions of this, and the second version also uses a bass voice, baritone voice, and he sang that in that one. And I had a wonderful soprano who sang the obligato in that second version.
mhm.
This version, as I was telling you earlier, was written for a group of amateur singers, and it really did prove beyond their ability to cope with it, though we worked strenuously for 2 months on it, and maybe even more than that. And I was a little too ambitious, I think, and that's why I dashed off a second one when I realized this was a no-go.
Well, I'm
Uh,
so glad you kept this one in the folder, because this is to me
well,
this is a sparkling. It
thank you.
seems as though every measure is telling a slightly new story. Even as you repeat the text, it tells and recreates a new drama in a very subtle and organic fashion that I've rarely seen in this setting.
Well,
Do you have any thoughts about the connection to this spiritual and to the trauma that is going on in the world right at the present moment, and the tragedy in Minneapolis? What
well, I
words about that?
the whole concept of the motherless child, certainly goes to the Floyd murder. His mother that he was calling out for had already been dead for 2 or 3 years.
Huh.
And it was amazing that those were his final thoughts. That's this. This is your inquiry has stirred up thoughts of using this and maybe connecting with a larger piece to say something dramatic about this event. I'm so glad you brought it to my attention. I'm really, really pleased with this.
Well, we are so honored that you have joined us today, and the fact that we had a chance to perform it in the fall, and get a chance to share the performance with our greater audience today. We can't thank you enough for the time and the effort, first of all, to write the piece, to write it from your heart out, and to
Yes,
expand our understanding of what this piece really may be speaking even 20 years after it's written. Well, we thank you, Adolphus, for being with us today,
sure.
and we'll look forward to future collaborations.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate this.